Let's go right to the receivers then, since we're on the topic. And Elijah Moore, I don't know that he got the acclaim that he deserved around college football. Those Alabama receivers led by Devontae Smith, of course, were ridiculous, and Elijah Moore was ridiculous. And he just takes so much offense with him. Rice Plumlee, though, turned into a key component there in the bowl win. He made some really good catches and turned out to be a guy that was key in ensuring that victory. So set us up at wideout.
Yeah. So, like we talked about a minute ago, Elijah Moore caught almost every single pass that was thrown this year for Ole Miss. Kenny Yeboah caught the majority after that. And after those two guys, there's a lot of guys with just, single digit catches, maybe 15 tops. And so, it's going to be challenging this year. It's going to be that's one of the things that Kiffin and everybody's alluded to, that is going to be the biggest challenge this year is finding out who's going to be that it factor again, who's going to be that guy. Because, all dating back last year, Lane Kiffin said, look, we want the ball in the hands of our best players. We don't mind that that. We're just, that's how we're going to run our offense. Our most talented guys will get the ball. And so, as we go into this year, we're going to have to figure out who that guy is. We've got Jonathan Mingo and Dontario Drummond. Those are both guys that have been around for a couple years. Like I said, they haven't, contributed a ton, but they've both had their moments. Obviously, when you got a guy like Elijah Moore who is open basically every time the ball is snapped, there's no real reason to try and force it to a Mingo or a Drummond. You're just going to hit the open guy. And so the lack of production is not because of a lack of talent. It's just they weren't needed. So you got those two guys. You've also got Braylon Sanders. He's been around for a couple years. He's made some really good plays for the Rebels, and he's been really big. He's fought some injuries back and forth. He's had a hamstring that's bothering him for multiple years now. But he's an uber talented guy that the Rebels have leaned on before. And then another one, Quay Davis. That's a guy who's a JUCO transfer. One of the 3 JUCO guys that we signed in this class, and he's a bit more of a big-bodied receiver that the Rebels are expected to kind of use on the outside. So looking at those 3 guys right there, Braylon Sanders is the only real slot guy in that group. He's also played on the edge before, but looking into the slot to kind of fill Elijah Moore's spot. We're excited. We got a guy named Ja'Cour Peterson, excuse me. Another transfer guy, has been an all-conference USA player before. He's kind of the same prototypical, 5'8", 180, speedster, gets open, has great hands. He's that type of receiver like Elijah Moore. And so, we're kind of excited about that because if we've got basically, another Elijah Moore who's already played college ball, that would be great. We'd love to have a guy that we could just roll right into this system. Wouldn't have to get him up to speed really. We just get him the ball. So I think this year it's going to be a little bit more of an effort by committee than it was last year. Definitely more than it was last year. But going forward, I think we're in good hands. We've just got to get it's just going to take a minute, I think, to kind of get some of these guys back up to speed and to where they're expecting the ball every play and to where they're we feel comfortable giving them the ball, more than we have the last couple of years.
Yeah, just to run down the numbers on the 3 experienced guys that you mentioned, Mingo, Drummond, and Sanders. Mingo caught 27, 3 touchdowns. Drummond, 25, 7 touchdowns. And Sanders, 15 catches for 4 touchdowns and 25 yards per catch for Braylon Sanders. So he made up some chunk yardage plays in that regard. At running back, same story in regards to, and Jake, I talk to guys covering college football all across the board every day, and typically we're talking about so many players moving on, but man, you got weapons all over the place coming back, so that's a good thing. Jerrion Ealy, one of the best in the SEC, scored 9 touchdowns on the ground and 1 through the air with 15 catches and 745 yards, so you got your main weapon out of the backfield coming back too.
Yeah. Jerrion Ealy, a couple years ago, he was a 5-star prospect. He's one of the best prospects that's ever signed with Ole Miss, and he came to campus and he immediately started proving why. He came in. I'm pretty sure, if I remember right, he was a freshman All-American or at least a freshman All-SEC. Like I said, came in. He took a lot of carries. Also returned some kicks and things like that. He kind of, in the same kind of respect as Plumlee, he's not a one trick pony. They've got a lot of different ways that they can get him the ball, that they feel like he can be effective with the ball. And he showed it over the last couple of years. He's a fast guy. He's shifty. He's not the big guy that you expect to see running through the tackles, but when he does run through the tackles, he's shifty. He's got good balance, and he's able to find those holes, which is something that's huge. Behind him, you've got Snoop Connor and Henry Parrish. Snoop Connor's a guy who's kind of split carries with Ely the last couple of years, and then Henry Parrish was a guy who came in as a freshman last year. Both of them have run the ball very, very well when their number was called. Last year, Jerry and Ely and Snoop Connor both ran for over 100 against Alabama, which is, I believe, if I remember the stat correctly, that's the only time that's ever happened in the Saban era at Alabama. And so, the point of that being that these guys know how to run the ball. They know how to run it. They know how to run it well. And we're kind of spoiled at the running back position because Ely's that top guy, but we've also got two really, really good running backs behind him, that can kind of take that load off. And there's really not too much of a drop off in talent and production when you put a Snoop Connor or a Henry Parrish out there.
And the point of that being, I think also in addition to running two running backs out there with 100+ yards against an Alabama team with a Nick Saban defense, is that everybody thinks Lane Kiffin pass.
Right.
But he's more balanced than that. He understands offensive football, that you need to have the ground threat. And with three excellent running backs coming back, that's a good sign for the Rebels. Got Jake Evans on the line from the Rebel Walk. I got to join him and the rest of the staff over there covering Ole Miss athletics. They're definitely a good bunch over there and have joined us for a long, long time. Offensive line, good group there. You only lose one. You got four coming back. And, of course, they're the guys that make all this possible.
Right. Yeah. So Royce Newman's the only guy that the Rebels are going to be losing from this class, or from last year's starting line. So you got Nick Broker returning. He's been a stud for the Rebs the last 2 years. They pulled him out of Big Ten country a couple of years ago. You got that would be Nick Broker at left tackle. Caleb Warren at left guard. He played in 10 games last year for the Rebs. Ben Brown at center. He's been a stud. He's been the key piece on that offensive line for a couple of years now. And then you got Jeremy James at right guard, another guy who played a lot of football last year. Where it gets a little bit dicey is looking at that right tackle position, though, because that was where Royce Newman was. You've got a bunch of different options in young guys. You've got an Eli Acker, Cedric Melton, Tobias Braun. You've got those three are all, they were pretty highly rated guys coming out of high school that are expected to be able to play some good football, at some point. But the interesting thing about this is that there's a lot of talk that Jeremy James might be shifted out to right tackle, leaving that hole at the right guard spot. So there's a lot of young depth with interior offensive linemen. So the thought is that they might shift Jeremy James out to right tackle and kind of just, use the wealth that they have with interior linemen and just try and plug that spot there. Obviously, we're not spring practice yet. We haven't seen the spring game yet. We don't know what they're thinking or how that's going to shake out. But yeah, there's bringing back 80% of your offensive line and having some good guys to fill that one empty spot. We feel good about where we're at. We've had times where our offensive line has been, an issue back and forth, where we've had injuries, where we've had, certain spots that we just couldn't fill. And we feel pretty confident going into this year. Like I said, we've got four guys who played a lot of football. And then the only hole we're plugging is with guys that, are as talented as anybody else on this roster.